Treat order comes at dawn. Kale Dorn hears it the same way he hears everything in the Sovereign Army. Third hand, through shouting, by the time it's already happening. The vanguard is pulling out of the Eschfeld reaches. Full withdrawal. Every ranked combatant, every guild-certified officer, every man with a commission that matters. The transports are loading at the eastern ridge, and the list of names being called is very short. His is not on it. He finds Lieutenant Pren at the loading ramp. Pren doesn't look at him. Supply personnel non-essential to extraction protocol, he says, reading from a manifest Kale has never seen. Reshidri amendment filed this morning. Desertion notation attached. He says it the way a man reads a weather report. Flat, finished, already walking away. Kale stands at the ramp as the last transport lifts. He watches it clear the ridge. He watches the dust settle. Around him, cracked gray plateau. Wind that cuts. 700 kilometers of enemy-held Ashveld with nothing at his back and nothing ahead. No rations passed today. No tools beyond the supply kit on his belt. No rank because the registry now says he ran. General Aldrin Voss signed the amendment himself. Kale had seen him do it, pen moving quickly, not looking up. He stands in the silence for a long time. Then the system speaks. Dormant class activated condition. Rights holder stranded in zero supply hostile zone. Rank voided by institutional falsification. Soil site active. Reading terrain harvest token count. 0. Begin. Fail. Looks down at the cracked gray earth under his boots. He crouches. He presses his palm flat against it and behind his eyes. The land opens up like a map he didn't know he could read. Water table, 11 meters. Mineral composition, workable. Dormant seed layer, present. Pressed, waiting. The plateau looks dead. It isn't, it's just been ignored. He opens his supply kit. 1 folding spade. A half roll of survey cord. 3 ration packs and a flint kit. He picks a flat stretch of ground 50 meters from a rock shelf that will break the wind, and he starts to dig. First row takes 4 hours. His hands blister by the second. The system registers the first seed in the ground and a number appears at the edge of his vision. 1. He plants the second row. Day 3 he finds the water, 11 meters. Exactly where soil site said. A slow artesian feed pushing up through fractured limestone. Rigs a channel from salvaged pipe fittings, as in the abandoned supply depot, the vanguard left behind. And by nightfall he has running water to 3 rows of crop beds. Harvest tokens, 38. By day 12, the first shoots break the surface. Kale sits on his heels and watches them in the gray morning light and feels something that isn't quite pride. More like confirmation. The land wasn't dead. Nobody had bothered to ask it. A traveler finds him on day 19. A displaced front farmer named Oris, who lost his plot to an Ashveld raider sweep 3 months ago and has been moving west with nothing since. Oris comes over the ridge at dusk and stops dead when he sees the crop beds below him. Green lines against gray stone, impossibly alive. He stands at the edge for a long time before he speaks. Who built this, he says. I did, Kale says. On the Ashveld. On the Ashveld. Oris looks at the water channel. He looks at the survey stakes still marking the next 3 rows to be turned. He looks at KL. Then he sets down his pack. Oris stays. His wife comes 2 weeks later. Then her brother. Then 3 families from the collapsed settlement at Veld's Crossing. Then a former army quartermaster named Sen, who heard there was a man on the Ashveld Plateau who could make things grow. Harvest tokens, 147. Kale puts them all to work, not harshly, not grandly, quietly. He shows Oris how soil site reads the gradient. He shows Sen how to lay a supply ledger so nothing is wasted. He shows the children how to read the wind off the rock shelf for planting timing, because the system gave him the knowledge, but it's faster if everyone carries a piece of it. Crop surge, active at 200 tokens. Yield multiplier, 2.4. Harvest cycle accelerated. Grain storage capacity expanded. The settlement doubles in output overnight. The storehouses Kale had built from salvaged timber and quarried limestone fill in 10 days. He builds more. The road that soil site had been quietly mapping. The path of least resistance across the plateau to the nearest river ford. Gets laid in 12-hour shifts over 3 weeks. Word moves slowly out here, but it moves. By day 180, there are 400 people on the plateau. By day 220, there are 900 and a functioning mill. The system doesn't announce it dramatically, it just updates. Harvest tokens, 500. Network. Active. Settlement connectivity. Established. Trade route efficiency. Times 1.8. Kale stands on the rock shelf above the settlement in the evening and looks down at the lights. Cook fires. Lanterns in the mill. The sound of the water wheel. He thinks about the morning the transport lifted off the ridge, and he feels nothing complicated about it. It happened. This also happened. The distance between those two things is the whole story. He goes back down and checks the grain ledger with Sen. What neither of them knows yet, what the continent doesn't know yet, is that 3 weeks ago, fungal blight emerged from the lowland wetlands and began moving north. It doesn't kill people. It kills crops. It moves through topsoil, root systems, through the certified agricultural networks. The Sovereign Army's Harvest Bureau spent 40 years building and maintaining. By the time the Bureau issues its first bulletin, the blight has already consumed 60% of the lowland yield. When the second bulletin goes out, it's 80. The Sovereign Army runs on its supply lines the way a body runs on blood. General Voss knows this. He has always known this. What he didn't build, because it wasn't in the doctrine, was a contingency for when the supply lines simply stopped. Harvest tokens. 800 famine seal active. Hostile faction soil within 40 kilometers. Yield suppression engaged. Duration. Indefinite. Kale feels it activate like a door closing quietly somewhere beneath his feet. He doesn't deploy it as a weapon. He doesn't have to. The blight is already doing the work. But the famine seal means that within 40 kilometers of the Ashveld settlement, the blight finds nothing to grip. The soil here is his. It always was. Messengers reach him on day 271, riders from 3 different directions, all with variations of the same news. The Sovereign Army's forward camps are down to emergency ration packs. The secondary supply depots are empty. The certified Harvest Bureau stations have been compromised one by one. A general is moving 12,000 soldiers north and west toward the Ashveld Plateau because someone in his intelligence unit found an entry in an old supply registry. A non-essential personnel note, a desertion flag, attached to a map coordinate that shouldn't have anything added anymore. Kale reads the message. He hands it to Sen. He says, "Start the 3rd storehouse rotation. We'll need the overflow capacity." Sen reads it. How many? 12,000 soldiers. Plus however many civilians are following the column. Sen looks at him for a moment. "And you're going to let them in?" "Yes," Kale says. "Terms." He has 3 days to prepare. He spends them the way he has spent every day on the plateau, working. The gate goes up at the settlement's northern edge. Timber and quarried stone, functional, nothing ornate. The ledger he's been keeping for 300 days gets copied and sealed, witnessed by Oris and 2 of the settlement elders. The system updates one final time on the morning of day 300. Harvest tokens, 1,000 sovereign table, active, classification, unranked above supply, the provision note. All yield within perimeter is sovereign. No external authority may tax, seize, or reallocate. The column appears on the plateau at midday. Kel watches it from the rock shelf. 12,000 soldiers in fraying kit. Dust gray, moving slowly. Supply wagons with empty beds. Officers on horses that look hollowed out. At the front, figure in a general's coat that hasn't been cleaned in some time. He goes down to the gate. Aldrin Voss looks older. That's the first thing Kale notices. The general pulls his horse up 10 meters from the gate and looks at the settlement behind it. The mill, storehouses, the crop lines running to the horizon, the smoke from cook fires, the sound of children. And something moves through his face that he tries to keep controlled. "Dorn," he says. General Kale says. Silence. The column has stopped. 12,000 people watching. Voss dismounts. It's a slow movement, deliberate, weighted. He walks forward until he's 3 meters from the gate. He looks at Keful for a long moment. Then he says, "We need access to your supply." "I know." Kale says, "I'm asking." "I know that too." Kale doesn't raise his voice. The plateau carries sound cleanly. Everyone hears him. 3 terms. Public, recorded, binding. First, the desertions notation filed against Kale Dorn on the morning of the Vanguard withdrawal is formally withdrawn and the registry record corrected by your seal today before the gate opens. Second, the settlement of the Ashveld Reaches is classified as a sovereign agricultural zone. No military jurisdiction, no taxation, no conscription. Third, the names of the supply personnel left behind in the Ashveld withdrawal are read aloud from the manifest and entered into the army's formal record as abandoned in the field, not deserted. Voss is quiet for a moment. He looks at the gate. He looks at the 12,000 behind him. He reaches into his coat and removes his registry seal. He holds it out. Kale opens the gate. The column begins to move through. Kale watches them come. Hollow-eyed soldiers, exhausted officers, civilian families who had been trailing the column for water and food, and he directs them to the storehouses, without hurry, without ceremony. Sen has the distribution ledger ready. Oris has the water lines open. The mill is running. On the rock shelf that evening, Kale sits and watches the cook fires multiply across the plateau. His settlement's fires, and now the army's fires interleaved with them. Hundreds and hundreds of lights against the dark. The wind off the Ashveld is cold and clean. Behind him, the storehouses are full. Before him, the land runs to the horizon, fertile and sealed, and entirely his. Somewhere in the column's camp, General Voss is eating food that Kale grew on soil that Voss had written off as a grave. Kale opens the harvest ledger to a clean page. Day 301. He writes the date, and then he begins the next entry.